Say hi in the live chat. Oh, so it's live now? Hold on one second. My audio a little off. All right. Now, hey, now it should be good. Hello? Can you hear me? All right, I hear you now. Yeah, all right, I hear you now. Yeah.
Take a while for things to warm up anyway. So like usually in the first few minutes, I kind of just introduce the show because I'll come back, people gonna watch. So I'll introduce the show and I just kind of, give some set some kind of understanding of what the show gonna be about, and then I just get to cooking. But that's typically about and then I'll take like again, we're using popular situations as case study. You know what I'm saying? And we're comparing that to real, you know, events that happen in average lives, and we're breaking it down as far as behavior wise and gaining understanding here. So we're not crucifying women, we not crucifying men, we're not a part of that. We talk what it is. You know what I'm saying? In regards to those situations, wherever whatever they may be. But hey man, if y'all don't even know who I am and this is your first time, I thank you for coming through. We're definitely going to have a very special show for you because we are going to be discussing the game. So that's the good part. Man, we're gonna be talking. Hey, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I've told y'all before. I think the algorithms be kind of fucking with my channel because they just don't want to have a real, truthful conversation. Something that isn't like uh divisive amongst the people, but it's going to make you like question some things that you believe. Anyways, this Cardi B situation, bro. I'm gonna give my take, and then I'm gonna let you give your thought on it. The one thing that I see coming out of this is the behavior, the behavior of Cardi. Um, I think that it's a bad example of how anybody should be, whether you're a man or a woman. I definitely think that to put yourself out in such a perverted, transparent way, I just think that's terrible. I think that also is a pattern after a woman who doesn't really care much about herself. If I'm being honest, I don't think when you're explicitly displaying yourself in a manner where people can objectify you and calling it love, that's really perverted. Whether she understands that or not, what do you think about that?
Like, not the freak in the streets with my wedding ring and my last name and the freak in the bed. You know what I'm saying? Like, it used to be honor amongst thieves, used to be a certain level of decency that, you know what I'm saying, a man and a woman just had towards each other if they had a family together, you know what I'm saying? Where, hey, we wasn't gonna just put each other on because y'all still have to raise a kid together, man. But um I don't really concern myself with how celebrities live. Everybody got the right to do whatever they want. What I always kind of but what I do always kind of look at is the narrative because see the narrative isn't about the celebrity. The narrative is about where we're at culturally. You know what I'm saying? And it's a reflection of that. The narrative I see, I'm like, it's interesting to me. It's like it's blatant hypocrisy. Where it's like, hey, I'm so happy for you, chase your happiness, happiness. I'm like, damn, I don't see that same narrative, if it for Papoose to have his happiness. I don't see people encouraging him to be happy. There's this idea now that happiness is over all, happiness is the most important thing and it is worthy at all costs. Don't matter what you do as a woman, if it make you happy, it's okay. And that's kind of weird to me.
also say this too. I think it's very petty what I'm seeing from uh these men too in return. I'm just not I'm not speaking on negativity my way. I'm not gonna give it acknowledgement. You know what I'm just not because there's always gonna be fucked up shit said about you, especially when you breaking up with somebody who may have thought y'all, were on the up and up. Whoever is to blame, something happened, y'all broke up. I think you have to manage situations better than these guys. You talking about the woman in public, getting up under there trying to fight with this man. It's like, nah, if she want to go, you essentially have to let her leave. So I think, go ahead.
Come with it. Like, so certain amount of crazy as a man, you really can't match because you should already expect that. You break up with a woman, your penis gonna be small, your friend gonna be more attractive than you were. She may put your sexuality out. That's just normal. She gonna wish you died. Like that's pretty much par for the course. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're dealing with women, and so some of what she on, I could, I ain't gonna say I understand, but I just say as a man, Offset a dude like that who seemed like he didn't dealt with women throughout his whole life. I'm sure this ain't his first rodeo dealing with a ex who really think that he the scum of the earth. So for him to go back, for him, to me, I always think as a man, God bless the late Philip Gilmore, sinful to pee. I'm too big for that. You know what I'm saying? I'm too big. I'm too big to be going back and forth arguing with somebody on. Man, I'm too big to be sitting throwing memes and shots and that. Man, I'm too big for that, man. That's just to me. I feel like that's the best, the safest way for a man to think. When 'cause once you start, you'll never beat a woman and out of in pettiness. They just got a different level that they can go to. So and when they're scoring ain't like our scoring, you know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't even play that game if I was him.
Today was, um, I'm not going to allow how she feels dictate how I operate. But this is not to say that you haven't we only learn this because we've been there. We've been in situations we allow women to dictate how we feel, and typically, uh and when we're emotionally responding, that's simple to people say, when you emotionally respond instead of mentally, and then you get into situations where you're slandering one another. I've been there, I know. I'm not just it to say that I've always been there, because I think a lot of these guys come have a certain bravado of, yeah, I've kind of always kept it like this. No, you have to learn. And when you set those hard boundaries, that has to be set around her cooperating with you. Once you get some type of resistance, once you get that type of aggression, you really have a choice and a decision to make how you're gonna operate from that standpoint. So I don't think it's ever a reason to have to respond to her aggression with being aggressive. I don't think it's ever a reason to have to, get on where she's at, from an emotional standpoint, because a lot of times it's going to be from an immature spot.
Even why they didn't act in accordance with the type of woman they that's just kind of so success as a man. There's no excuse to stop being a man, to not to drop being a man. You have to handle everything like a man. You know what I'm saying? Even things that you don't even know how to handle. Ain't that crazy? You still, even if it's something you don't know how to handle, you still have to handle it like a man. So man, I think the best place to always go to, in a place in a time when you don't know, is prayer and leaning on wisdom, man, and wise counsel. And if you don't know what to do, in a lot of cases, outside of somebody's life being on the line or something like that, a lot of times if you don't know what to do, a wise man once said nothing at all. So leaning on that, man.
Opportunity for us to learn and not be messy. Because, I try to provide light on I want to point out that I understand both sides, but I take a position. So I why a woman might overreact. I do understand why you might get your car keyed up or whatever the case may be. I understand these. goes down, you still have to take a level of responsibility, because you have allowed certain behavior from this person. Now I'm not getting cheated on. That sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you're just, we talked about this earlier too when we were talking about red pill. You made a very good point when you said that this is also involving men who thought that if they did everything right, if they did all the right stuff, if they did really good, that they'd have this perfect life with this woman, and come to find out it's not always like that. So
In the chat, am I allowed to type in the chat? Uh, okay. Maybe I don't know. It might be me tripping. But what's up, Prince? Um, Yeah, nah, and I mean, and to be fair too, man, you play silly games, you get silly prizes, man. So I think it ain't like we're not talking about what I'm saying the saint, a saint and a sinner here, what I'm saying. So hey, sometimes when you open that door, what I'm saying, you don't know what all gonna come with it, man. So but hey, one thing I was thinking, so on my mind, I'm actually working on a video essay about this right now. It's June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And you hear me? Okay. And like, man, I think a real serious question I've been thinking about is like, since this mental health movement has started, let's just say approximately about 10 years ago, right? We don't talk about mental health and awareness enough. And so many people, they went to therapy, they've healed this, that, and the other. Can we objectively say that we are a better people after this mental health movement than we were before? And I don't think that we can. I don't think that we can actually say that this movement has resulted in a better person. If anything, it's made us worse. Like everyone, because and it's not there. My issue is not therapy, right? I don't think the problem is the therapist. The problem is the movement and the narratives around the movement. This is a movement that celebrates the diagnosis more than the treatment. This is a movement that pathologizes. Not if you don't wake up out of your bed feeling great, ready to go put in an amazing 8-hour shift at work, come home, run through the door, hug your significant other, have a smile on your face, and be fully present when they listen, then something's wrong with you. You can't like, hey, bro, like life is hard, bro. Like life is, what I'm saying? So I think it's created this unreal expectation of like how we're supposed to feel. Everything ain't a mental health condition, not to discount people who are suffering, but I think it's just been a collection of a lot of bad ideas. Vulnerability. Can't believe we use that word vulnerability for 10 years without looking it up in the dictionary. Look, if you read that word and you say you want to be vulnerable, you're tripping. Like so to me, it's just been a largely uninformed movement. Meanwhile, white man that came up with nootropics, got rules passed in the class where you can't diagnose kids, you can't diagnose boys that sit down a certain amount of time with any type of mental condition. But we talking about crying in front of our woman. We want to cry in front of our woman. That's the like come on, this movement has not resulted in healed people. I healed is as healed does. Yes. No motherfucker got tribes and shit. They didn't discover the power of tribe, men's groups, nootropics, which are basically like you call it brain food, like combinations of vitamins and things, non pharmaceutical combinations of ways that you can get optimal peak performance. White man has sat around and been doing experiments, trial and error. You know what I'm saying? They didn't form divorce support groups. They got special therapy now for men specifically coming out of divorce. White man done an awesome job with mental health. I ain't trying to go all out Uncle Ruckus, but like, yeah, like it's not. I mean, it's not even comparable, man. It's not even comparable. The white man is getting is right now. They're collectively they're in grad school. You know what I'm saying? And we're in community college. Yeah.
I don't even know. I think you're a troll. So let me do this. Everyone.
DB Cooper's the only plane hijacker to get away with it. He hijacked the plane, had a backpack on, it took the money, whatever. Then he hopped out of it, and they never found him. guess so. DB Cooper, and they got a lot of what actually happened to him. So
Why I see something silly down there and I just get rid of it. But I have a mod. Shout out to the mods who be here doing their thing. But um here's the thing. When we're talking about black masculinity and us taking a deep look at it, um, is astoundingly different from what the white man traditionally has had because he's always viewed himself in ownership of something. Um, it's his decision to, his willing to his willingness to give up his life willfully for what he believes in is much different than men. And as to I mean black men. And I think a lot of that has to do with just because it's not just single parent household. I don't believe that at all. I just think it's the placement and position of the alignment of that ethnicity. You Anglo-Saxon, your ancestors came here. They really developed this country into what it became over time. So we're in a fight for resources, anyways. I don't want to just get on my Yvette Cornell, but the white man's positioning has always had, he's I think the autonomy is just different. You know what I'm saying? Now that's no excuse. As black men, we have to understand we have the same and a lot of that oppressive mentality that press on the people, they mainly put that on women. They mainly put that on them. And a lot of times, in our culture and our society, we put that on our community because it's a matriarch, like we talked about. So I think the way taking action and even thinking about how they need to assemble things to take place. Black men as a collective just really hadn't got there yet. That's why when we have these discussions, sometimes you get more pushback from the men than you do from the women.
if we're going back to, like you're saying, the white groups taking ownership of, how you're saying basically the way that they see themselves strengthens their ability to be able to be resolute in addressing challenges. Not to paraphrase. Okay, I mean, yeah, I can see that. I mean, um, I can see how that could affect things. I think a lot of I definitely feel like, now one of the things when it comes to mental health, I think one of the issues, another part that I have problem with, is the classification of all human minds as the same. No, I think mental health should be separated by race and by gender. Depression shows up in men far differently than it shows up in women. This is clinical studies. The research shows this. So men are not going to show depression in a way that women do. You feel me? So it's like to say that there's a guy. Remember that show Sports Science used to come on ESPN. Had this well, anyway, this guy, I used to really love this show, Sports Science. The guy died, killed himself yesterday, right? Or I'm gonna say, they say he lost his battle with depression. So I'm assuming that's some type of suicide, right? You rarely hear, though it does happen. I think that sister was like Miss America in New York, jumped off a building, but very rarely do you hear of a black person who actually has their financial life together, their relationship, a committed relationship, etc., commit suicide. Most of the time, a lot of our mental health conditions is in connection with our some type of lack that we have, lack of balanced house, lack of whatever. Nigga be talking about he got think he got clinical depression. He just broke. Like it's a it's a difference in yo, bro. You're like, no, it's not. You don't have clinical depression. You have a 500 credit score and $6 in your account. That's what you have. You know what I'm saying? Like a life that. So I think that part is a little tricky too, man. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think when you said it, a lot of our mental health issues is attached to what we're in lacking. A lot of men. I feel there's a generation of men. I don't want to say a lot of men. That means that it's going to continue, and I don't believe that. I think you have more active fathers today than you've probably ever had. But I think there's a group of men who hadn't really seen masculinity performed in its proper way, in its proper place, and usually they're acting out of emotion. Whether there's a involvement of one of a woman or not. If there's not some type of authority to guide these men into learning how to be men, that's an issue. So
One thing right now, one thing that we started doing that, one thing I think the baby boomers got right is respect for your parents. This mental therapy, I mean, people be on social media just talking, hey, my father didn't do this, my mother. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not saying that, hey, man, I don't think there's very few parents, who, if you just had to get their approval rating of everything decision they made, their kids would be like, yeah, this parent was a 10. I think the average parent is probably gonna be about a C. They did a lot of things good. They did some different. But this whole like critiquing of everything that my parents didn't do perfectly is like somehow now my trauma, this, that, and the other. I mean, come on, get a grip. Like for a while I kind of bought into that shit. Hey man, well, I went to I lived in a black neighborhood and I went to the white school and then because you put this pressure on me, so no one was ever real. Man, the fuck out of here, man. What I'm saying? These people are doing the best that they could do. Like and this idea that like, you know, we have the right to critique any and everything that the people who raised us that genuinely, a lot of them genuinely were doing their best. Niggas mamas was fucking busting their ass to pay for you to fucking be in dance class, pay for you to be in that. She might have had bad nerves. That your pops might have had a short temper. Man, that nigga was fucking, what I'm saying, busting his ass, working all 9 to 5, taking up working an extra job for you to play summer baseball, and you got the nerve to critique a nigga because he didn't talk to you enough. I'm like, man, the nerve of our generation to me is just is I mean, now not to say some people didn't suffer things, but come on, man. Yeah.
there's, you would rather blame someone else instead of you. Do you want to make it? Do you want to survive? I think that comes down to survival of the fittest, man. That's not whether you black, white, purple, pink, it don't matter. What are you going to do to get to the next level? I think as a man, you have to think like that. Hey, I've been depressed. I mean, like I've been depressed. I've been emotionally in places where it's like, damn, but do I want to get to the next level? Do I want to get to the next space? Yes, I do. Do I have ability? I think a part of manhood is also having a level of responsibility. Do what are you for? Does that matter? Does your sacrifice um that's just not in everybody. I don't give a fuck where you from. Like that's just not in everybody. And you want to get better, you start to question things like that. Like what I don't know, man. I don't fuck with excuses. You learn this too through other men and examples. I learned this from basketball coach in middle school. If you showed up late, if you had an issue, if you had anything going on, it could be legit. If he asked you what's up, your answer's supposed to be no excuses. I was like, so
Thing that we are removing right now from men is like great great rites of passage experiences where certain core values and core principles are being installed or instilled. Now you can't tell a kid man up. You tell a kid man up, you're being hey. You tell a kid hey be strong, you're being hateful. You tell a kid uh hey, you know what, fight through that, you being hateful. If you tell her, I'm like goddamn, but if you tell a little girl be strong, that's perfectly, that's great parenting, right? You tell a little girl be strong, be this, you're tough, you're doing this, and that's ass backwards to me. Nothing wrong with telling that to a girl, but how could telling that to a girl be fine, right? But telling that to a boy, um, it's some type of, you're creating toxic. Like most people who say talk use term toxic masculinity, they don't know nothing about masculinity, or they're telling like an incomplete story. This is a classic one. It's always some non-credential, never read a book, don't couldn't tell you who Carl Jung is, but want to diagnose how you grew up as a black man. Yeah, you because you grew up and your dad told you not to cry. No, my dad didn't tell me not to cry. What my dad said is, hey, son, you can't throw a temper tantrum because your team lost and run in the bathroom and cry. Yeah, get your ass back in line and shake those hands. That's what he said. He didn't say, son, you can't cry. He said, hey, son, you don't get to play Street Fighter 7 times in a row because you lost when you have cousins and friends over here. Get off the damn stick. The hell are you crying? That's what the conversation. But see, we don't have context today, so we just and we love to repeat stuff. You know, man. Like I think Doctor what's my lady name? She in the Winging It Hall of Fame. She's from Cam Newton. Doctor A. Doctor Brian. Hey, she the Winging It goat. She's a she. Hey, man, she the goat. She the go to Winging It. But I learned from her how quick people are to repeat shit if it, I mean, if you dress it up right, people will just repeat something. We don't like we don't. A lot of people don't just sit and think like, wait, hold up, does that make sense? You know, am I qualified to have this tape? You know what I'm saying? Do I have the experience? And I think we just be repeating stuff, man. Hey, as for me in my house, I want my son to be tough, strong, a leader in first place, get up, fall down, you know, do shit that boys do, you know, and hey, also I want him to have room to talk to me about whatever you want to have, you know, whatever you want to talk about. It's not a zero sum game.
We don't want to be based off of validations. We don't want to be making decisions that are going to affect people based out of emotions. And masculine energy tends to lean towards more of a safety provider mentality. So it's going to think more about better of the group. And that may mean sacrifice. If you go an opposite, more feminine energy, it's not so much. It's not, it doesn't operate, especially when it's making decisions. So you have to think about that. A lot of women come from emotional states. That's feminine energy. That's what it does. There's nothing wrong with that. But we want to lean more. Yeah, it's how we fall on the spectrum where we fall. That's what I'm trying to say at the end of. And I think that is when the collective becomes more validated, when the collective leans more towards feminine energy and away from real masculine energy, it's gonna demonize it. It's gonna make it seem wrong because everything you said is standard. It's about standard. It's about principle. It's like we're gonna operate in an orderly fashion all the way. Versus feminine energy tends to not want to be in line with that. It wants to be valid. I feel free. I should do this because of how it makes me feel. And men do that. When you're operating from how something makes you feel, you're a slave to that. You're a slave to however something makes you feel versus what's right, what makes sense. That's why we have morals, principles, standards, something you should be in line with. You have
Comfort. Like we're becoming a society. In particular, it's one thing for women to feel that it's a totally different. It's a like it's pure anarchy when the men now become succumb to that. Like what part of what make a man part of what make a man is his ability to endure. And we talk so much about vulnerability, 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 open up transparency. No, listen, that's fine. There's another season though. See, there may come a time in your life when you meet a person who you can actually be vulnerable, have transparent emotional connection with. That may or may not happen. There's for sure is going to be a time in your life when you have to endure. And what a season of enduring is or bearing your cross is that's a season when not only are you going through your storm, but you're going through your storm and your duty still has to be completed. That's the fundamental part of being a man. When my boy is at his mother's funeral, and you know his sister's crying because the body doesn't look how she remembered her mother to look, you know, and everybody's coming up to the stage and crying and everything like that. And he just found his mama dead a week ago. He's mourning, but in the strength, he has to adhere to his duty and put everything, make sure everyone else is fine. And this guy was the strongest man at his mother's funeral. My partner, when he found out his 13-year-old daughter was pregnant, You know what I'm saying? Dude found out his 13-year-old daughter was pregnant in the midst of a bad business deal. He couldn't go wild off and kill the kid. He had to endure. You know what I'm saying? But we don't celebrate enduring no more. All we celebrate is, oh yeah, man, I was just dealt with my trauma, and yeah, I'm part of my healing process and my unpacking. And I was, with women because I never saw my dad. And man, my uncle he was of the lifestyle. He was with Mel Taylor. Man, shut the fuck. Nigga, when do you what at some when do you how much of it are you actually responsible for yourself? And that's the part I think we you know. And I asked a brother in the military this, brother Knowledge, right? And one thing I credit brother Knowledge, and I want to talk to him. He has a book coming out called Tears Heal. He sees some of these things in a different way than I maybe see it, right? But I asked him, I said, hey, in the military, if we're at war, right, but I'm depressed, can I come to my battalion commander and say, hey, I'm depressed right now, man? So, he said, nah, you got to get back out there. Exactly. Exactly. If it's that real, why can't depression get me off the field in the military? Why can't depression at the highest levels of our society, most dependent of why can't it stop? Why can't it relieve us of duty there? Because we know that at the end of the day, it calls for that.
combat, and they will have some type of level of emotional or mental, um, I would say, injury. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to say to anyone out there viewing this that it's not a real thing in terms of, how you really function, things that may affect how you think. But I think what we're talking about here are a lot of self-diagnosed folk, a lot of self-diagnosed therapy for a long time. I'm not driven to the point to where I'm offing myself, unaliving myself, whatever the case may be. But I'm coping. I'm living along with this. There's a question to that, or I can't do. I'm living and breathing, needing having to get my needs met, but I'm battling with this traumatic experience that I'm never gonna get over. I think I think you have to really ask yourself, why are you going through that?
Fighting too is, you know, does are you gonna see people act like mental health is the most important thing, right? And for men, duty is your most important thing. And that's why I was just highlighting as that example. Not to say people don't come home from that shit. I had an uncle came home from Vietnam. Dead President's movie, basically. And a lot of people got an uncle like that. So I'm not saying that with the combat in and of itself doesn't cause issues, but I'm saying like outside, just in general, day to day life, we have become um, obsessed with this idea and this need to be seen and this need for our and I just feel like more so than anything, I don't think anything is wrong with feeling the way anyone feels. Only reason I think is wrong is because you're lying to men. You're lying to men about a world that doesn't exist. So when a man finds himself in a situation believing that, okay, well, hey, if I'm down, I got these resources, I can take a mental health break and all this, and he thinks that there's going to be these open arms, and only to realize how cold this world really is, you really don't want everybody knowing your weaknesses. You know what I'm saying? That really is some private information. When you see how cold and callous and cutthroat the world is, that could lead to. I'm trying to stop somebody from jumping off a bridge. So even though what I'm saying may sound the harshest and the most tasteless, to me, it's the most loving because it's actually the truth. You know, yeah. So at the end of the day, like people say stuff like, "Hey, this is another one I hate, man." To any of my people post this on Facebook. I'm glad I don't see it as much anymore. To any of my friends suffering or whatever, if you ever having thoughts of hurting yourself, don't just call me. I'm like, do you know what you just said? You just said, you just said to anybody in your circle, your ass ain't got a lick of crisis, intervention experience in your life. But now you're gonna stand in the gap for anyone on Facebook that's a friend of yours. That means morally, right? If you really say that and you really mean that, that means every time your phone ring, you have to answer it. That means every time if you really actually take what you're saying serious and you're not just popping off on Facebook, which I know a lot of people are, then I mean, because most mental health advocates, I just don't see no real advocating outside of them talking about mental health. Like that means you're gonna answer the phone every time they call. That means somebody call you and need to talk to. That means if someone messages you at 2 in the morning and you read it, you're gonna respond. You know, talk. That's a hell of a commitment to make. Don't say stuff like that if you're not really about that. I've been in that position before. I had a guy. I was driving Uber once. A guy got in my back seat. You know, I was listening to my philosophy mentor. He said, "Oh," he said, "I said, you mind you listen if I play this?" He said, "No problem, man." He said, "I wish I could ask him a question." I said, "What would you want to ask?" He said, "Man, I want to ask him like, man, I don't even like staying at home by myself alone. I'm always scared." I said, "Hey, listen, man, this philosopher here kind of harsh, man, you know, but so he's not gonna necessarily sugarcoat. But this is what I would tell you, you know, to paraphrase, you can't he what he always teaches is you can't you can't be the strong you by identifying with the weak you. So the guy opened up, right? He said, "Man, I've been through a lot." Long story short, the guy had been being raped by his family since he was 3 years old. You know, I'm talking about his Hispanic guy, you know, and then he tried to so we talked on the whole way home. Now I'm telling him, like, man, that's no, you can overcome this, man. You could get better than that, man. You could. So anyway, by the time you get out the car, I didn't, nigga, I think I'm Eric Thomas. He get out the car, bro. You gonna be all right. You took down Pastor Tia. Call them for the council call. If you need anything, give me a call. What you think happened the next day? My damn phone rung. Now I wasn't all wired up. Now I ain't all cheerful. But he wanted 45 minutes. 2 days after that, you know what I'm saying? I didn't hit this green screen button by mistake, but 2 days after that, he called, right? He called and he wanted to talk 3 days after that. And I said, you know what? If he calling me, he must not have no one else to call. So every time this man calls, I'm gonna answer because I did tell him that, right? Because I feel like it was the morally right thing to do. So shit, eventually it faded out. But I'm gonna tell you, this new year, brother got on Facebook Messenger, went to talking to me about how hard life been, asked me for my phone number. So I said, for what? He said, he's just one of my digital friends. He said, man, cuz bro, I just need someone to talk. I'm doing bad right now. I said, I'll tell you what, bro. Uh, you know, I'm not in a position nor qualified to provide grief counseling, but I do know a really great therapist. Here's his number. Give him a call. Then, if you want to follow up after that, we can chop it up. I'm not giving it. I'm not standing in the gap. I know what come with that. But I actually live by principles and code. I don't just talk on social media. So
Right. Now your walk and your talk got to line up because that's the
yeah,
only way you can be able to have conversations like this where people can identify and they get something out of it. Um, Here's the thing: life has challenges, and men don't need to run away from challenges. Men need to take on challenges. That's just what it is. You become a better man when you have the experience. If you don't have the experience, you can't get this knowledge. You get knowledge through experience. Experience is the best teacher. You can't be scared to do that. You can't let fear or the unknown keep you from progressing forward, and keep you going towards a place that you want to be. You can't do that as a man. And so when you have a place in a man's life that's coddling his weaknesses and telling him that it's okay to let those weaknesses control him, you're really making a terrible man. And yeah, it's gonna sound harsh, but you're saving somebody's life, man. When you said that, when you was like, I'm trying to keep somebody from jumping off the bridge, it's like, yes, because it's like, dude, it's gonna be hard. So conversations like this helps. Hey, guess what? We don't even got the answers. We're just up here facilitating and politicking the shit that we didn't learn. That's really what we doing. We not up here. We don't have the answers. But as a man, you can't be afraid of the unknown. You have to keep going through, man. I appreciate the hundreds coming through the hearts. Man, hit that like button. Y'all hit that like button. Y'all hit that subscribe button if you like this conversation because these are the conversations that need to be going out on YouTube. Everything that's going viral is coddling and validating them. Oh, validate. I feel a certain way. I don't feel like getting up to do this. I'm oversensitized or whatever the fuck they be saying. My sensory overload, man. What?
different things like that. On the flip side, I think for me though, man, like I think I was telling you this another episode, man. I just took an oath to myself, man, and I released all forms of victimhood. You know, all forms, and I just refuse to identify with being a victim. And to me, Now there's some justified victimhood. Don't get me wrong. Like you've been molested, you've been raped, you've been those type of things. There are some things like where like people are very warranted in being a victim, right? Even in being a victim, it's still your responsibility. You're still fully responsible for the resolution to whatever happened to you. Nobody else, nobody else is gonna help you. You know what I mean? I'm not saying nobody else is gonna have help you, but no, it's no one else's responsibility. I got hit by a drunk driver. I still don't feel like a victim. I shouldn't have been out there that long. I should have been, hey, if I was gonna get insurance that didn't cover for people who hit you without insurance, I should have made sure I had the money put aside. I don't and as I've released victimhood as a as something that I can go and clutch onto, you know, it's made me a stronger person. You know what I'm saying? It's made me focus on my circle of influence a lot more. Yeah.
God, how do I undo a possession? Man, get out of here, dog. When I see
Shoot
Wild
us. This what you do. You send a super chat for $99, and then we got some holy. Hold on, look. Send if you possess, send in $99. I'm gonna pray on this water, right? I'm gonna pray on this water, and then we're gonna send that to you, man, and we'll bless you and get that possession removed, man. Yeah.
adjustments, man. At the end of the day, life is about adjustments. Where do you want to go with it? Do you want to sink or do you want to swim? And the collective, I as this victimhood mentality. And I'm talking about our people. You know, there's a we don't really think in, I guess, objective way. Is that how I should say it? You know, we don't really we don't use discretion well. We just kind of go with how things make us feel. And so I can totally understand why collectively black men have issues with their masculinity. Oh, this hey, I got hey, Miss Janice is in here. And she done fell through. Moderator on deck, man. You know, what I'm saying? Part of the community, Miss.
Now some things are out of control, but there's certain things we can do. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, hey, one of my things I always say is like, hey, make men arrogant again. You know, I found arrogance to do wonders. And then when I say arrogance, I don't mean like necessarily literally be a jerk or a snob or off-putting or anything like that. But I mean just returning to a level of certain pride or so. Hey, when I walk out the house today, I'm gonna look the absolute best that I'm capable of looking. I'm gonna keep this place that I live, you know what I'm saying, the most clean domain, the most flies domain I can possibly have it at because I deserve to live. You know what I look like. I'm too big, too magnanimous of a man to have an unmade bed. Like just returning back to that self narrative. You know what I'm saying? Like where like, and the thing about manhood that I think is altered now is like I think now the desire is to be a high value man or important or powerful, but like whatever happened, just wanting to be a great man. You know what I'm saying? I think now we're chasing possession or chasing accomplishment instead of chasing character. You know,
Enjoy this conversation. That helps us out because again, I'm gonna keep saying this: the algorithms will not placate to the righteousness. Y'all got to get it out there. If you participating in it, you enjoy this. You got to get it out there. Um, I put this post up about men control their emotions when they're with a woman. You have to think about safety. You are responsible for safety emotionally, mentally, uh, to yourself first, to your household, um, and your community. It's going to be all in how you respond up here. What's going to be the greater good? Taking
yeah,
on responsibility. It's okay to take on responsibility. You have to be fighting for order, not being a part of chaos. You know, men are fighting to maintain order And again, with that is going to come regulations. It's going to be some hard boundaries. It's going to be some no's. And you have to be okay with doing that. But see, here's where a lot of men fail. A lot of men would rather participate in degeneracy. You let degeneracy, being a degenerate. A lot of men fight for that, perversion. You want to participate in things that make you feel good, things that are validating to you. You're not thinking about the greater good. Can y'all hear me? Everything cool? You can hear me? I'm coming through. Cool. Did you hear me, Rob? No. I just wanted to make sure you can hear me. You know what I'm saying? But men have to learn standard, and you learn this through understanding that life gets rough when you don't do that. Life becomes chaotic. Life is disorderly when you allow things to be dictated off how you feel, because everything that you feel doesn't mean that it's correct. Just because you're scared of something don't mean you shouldn't go do that, which makes you have some level of fear. You have to beat those challenges. At the same time, you can't put yourself or position your life in a way where there's danger. You're open to danger just coming in and wrecking what you have going on.
All of the things and responsibilities and that really come with being a man, you know what I'm saying, or at the highest level. You know what I'm saying, as far as like you said, just really embracing what all comes with it, and and our responsibilities towards evolution, um and that part, what that Paul say, being a child, and putting away childlike things. And it's a real journey. And I think in today's time, we just are so caught up into the result. We just want the result. I'm a high value. I just want to, like, instead of like just it's become an outer journey. I think this was always meant to be an inner journey.
Right. That's the
So
self validating attitude. Men are, want to be shiny and flashy like the women do. I never saw my grandfather on the phone. I never saw my grandfather just, gossiping. I saw him handling his business. I saw him putting a cover over a family, and he was a blue collar guy. Most of us are just blue collar people. But, I think the common denominators in these men, like, my grandfather just being this man, was the type of woman he had. And the type of woman he had wasn't the type of woman that was going to bark back. The type of woman, now, good women have boundaries. This doesn't mean that that woman who's being submissive doesn't have boundaries, but she didn't bark. She understood the boundaries and respected the boundaries, and the need was provided. So the man commanding that took on a level of responsibility, as well as having a no nonsense attitude. And the type of woman he got that could accompany him on that mission was somebody who could be submissive. See, a lot of the times, fellas, we are making poor decisions based off of where we are on our masculinity plane. Because often, if you letting feelings lead, you letting lust lead you, and you falling in love behind that, you're most certainly setting yourself up for danger. Let me tell y'all something. N- Uh, Men with money get left too.
man, man,
Women, a woman will listen. Y'all done fell for the trick of this whole high value because I got money shit. If you lead with money, you gonna lose with money. You better be going with this, because if you're not catching the attention of your company or anybody that's around you with your presence, then that's a self issue. A lot of men initially lead with lust. You typically want to get that type of woman. You're not thinking about, how does this woman complement what I got going on? Does she fit into what I have going? Because remember, I'm fighting for order. I need to have something that's going to be in order. That doesn't mean that tension ain't coming. It doesn't mean that chaos won't approach. You always have to be thinking. You have to make adjustments. Your life is training. That's why you have to have experiences. Your life is training. You have to go through tough times and beat the challenges. And your woman's going to be testing you all the time too, until she doesn't test just as much because she trusts you. She trusts that you can.
They're trying to not become bulletproof in a sense that they can handle whatever life throws at them, trying to become bulletproof so that they're spared by life. You're so cold, you're so accomplished, you're so this that far be it, a woman would never cheat on you. No one would ever disrespect you. No one would ever do this. So they think it's almost like they're trying to use the accomplishment to spare them of, shame, embarrassment, hurt, those type of things. There's no way around it. I mean, look at Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen, hey, great athlete. Obviously physically, he's in shape with everything like that. Multi-millionaire, has clout status, top 50 NBA players of all time. Hey, you see what's going on with him and his ex-wife, Will Smith. It's Offset and Cardi B. So there's no way, there's no way around. There's a certain level of risk and things in life that may go wrong. I think the true refining is to be able to trust yourself to be able to handle if things go wrong. I think, to me, Will Smith, yeah, it was ugly what happened with Chris Rock. I like the way that he's been bouncing back. How he's courageously returning to life. You know what I'm saying? Like as a man, you got part of you. What we got to do is like bounce back. There is no now. If you want to be a high value man because that's your standard of excellence. You want to be the best lawyer. You want to be the best engineer. You want to be phenomenal. You believe in economic empowerment, but don't be a high value man so that you can sleep with. Oh well, I sleep with this, and I'm an accomplished man, so I can have two women. That's not good fuel. You know what I'm saying, to run long term.
You lead with feelings. Again, I'm going back to that. You're typically going to you're going to build ground on temperamental things. It's just not wise for a man to be doing that. You want to build a solid ground. So these are things that have been tried and true over time. These are mistakes you may have made. And a lot of times you're not going to find that out at the beginning. You're really not going to find it in it. You have to get I think a lot of times when we go back to the type of women that we say have the propensity to not be loyal is a lot of times is men. When I talk about lust, I'm also talking about putting the looks over the character, putting the feeling over the character of the person. Also, this person's willingness in the very beginning to show you that they're willing to follow your lead and follow your boundaries, but this does not mean that this person may not stray away. Now I'm about to get into something that I've never really talked about, but I'm gonna present this, and I want everybody's opinion on it. But I'm gonna present this. A man that understands the way of the world, you can cover a multitude of sins if you really love this woman. I'm not saying allow this woman to get off in the streets. I'm not saying allow this woman to just be this bona fide whore, so to speak. But you might have to have some covering that she might fuck off. But she got to be making the adjustments. If she don't make the adjustments to where I need her to go, then I have to make a definitive decision on what I'm going to do with her because this could potentially be bringing in chaos. I don't know. See, when you leave it up to a physical thing, oh, if this person cheat on me, well, I have to decide in what manner do I feel like this is a dismissive situation. Whatever the case may be, if we have something at stake, as men, you have to suck it up and move accordingly. This don't mean if you feel like you have to get out there and replace her and do whatever the case may be, then you just need to cut this woman off and move on and take what come with that. A lot of I'm presenting that for a lot of men who um they put so much faith in their woman that if you find out she's whoring or whatever, you just lost.
Hmm.
Hey, if it's bothering you, if it's a thing for you, leave her alone. Get someone who you feel like, hey, I saw characteristics in that didn't work. I'm gonna go here. But they all present some level of an issue. They all present some level of pushback. You have to learn how to manage it. And I think this is best managed when you're finding women who exactly like you, who are actually doing what you asked them to do, and they would like to live in your boundary. That's what it is. All that let her be as free as she. If that doesn't work for you, brunch and all that. If you're that type of man, that passive man that allows that, and you need to understand what type of woman you may get. But women want boundaries. Women want boundaries because it's beneficial for you and them. They're not silly. Right. That's
She didn't. Not only did his wife, move along, she moved along with somebody in his field, stood next to him amongst rappers. There's nothing more embarrassing for a rapper than for somebody, what I'm saying, to really engage in, intimacy with your woman. He
right.
took the greatest blow. He took the greatest punch. He got right up. He didn't turn into, man, that's why these women ain't, that's why he ain't subtweeting, man. You can't trust them. Man, that's why you can't trust nobody, this, that, and the other. He not even bitter. He moved on. He moved on with his life. He accepted what happened. And I think as men, we always got to remember that, man, we can't stop being men at any time. We have to handle everything like a man. And on the forgiveness part, this is what Pastor, that's probably the best thing I've heard in regards to that. Before bringing somebody or deciding that you're gonna rock with someone after a transgression, you have to be honest with yourself. Am I willing to do the work? Because it's gonna come with some work. Are you willing to do the work that it's gonna take to get past this thing that's happened that has been hurtful? And if not, you can save both of y'all time. I think you got a question at the bottom of.
Yeah, nah. Yeah, I'm gonna get this question from Miss Janice. What recommendations do you guys make for single mothers seeking to raise solid men? I'm gonna say this. It's That's difficult. Especially if the relationship with the father isn't where it needs to be. But I will say this: no matter the emotional tie you may have with that man, if a decision has been placed out for you both or by courts or whatever the case may be that you are not going to be with one another, you need to have an open invitation for that father to be in the child's life. Of course, excluding any type of, violence, really heavy dysfunction, that's abusive situation, whatever the case may be. That's one thing. But if these are regular people, if you have a regular people involved, allow the children to be, with that father, in some format. That is very helpful. Any men in the father, any men in the family, people that have a positive example on that kid, if that's the best she can do for people in that situation, I'll say that. But for the future, you don't need to be having no kids, and that is not with your husband. The best Your best bet is you need to be in a situation where you're looking to have the children of someone you plan to marry. Now we just have to really start to define what that man is like. Who is the man that would best suit you in that situation? And a lot of times it may not be what you would consider quote unquote desirable. It's just what it is. It may not be.
I'm
It
gonna
may
take a
not.
stab because the only thing I think if the question, if a single mother raising a man, that the kid already here, So
Right.
so in that case, I say to me, a boy needs a man to preside over him. If it's not his father, hey, I would be trying to expose him to male leadership as much as possible, and whether it be, if is it a neighborhood coach, is it a LeVar Ball in the neighborhood who trains kids, is it a neighborhood dojo, is it somebody teaching kung fu, Wing Chun, in the neighborhood, is it the church ministry, do they have some type of youth ministry, a boy needs a man to preside over him, that, and that's like, and if it's not gonna be one particular man, a collection or a community, man, boys and girls club, like I'd be very intentional about the fact that, like, about as a woman, what I know and what I don't know. I think women, the thing that's unique about girls is girls come with like certain just things biologically that no man has ever experienced. So we don't have to there's no delusion we can live in, like we know what it's like to be a woman. We've never menstruated, we've never done that. I think the illusion that boys give is that, like, he's just like me, or he's having an experience just like me. I think it takes a lot of humility to know what you don't know, and an error on the side of hey, um as far as him being a great human, hey, you know what to do, but error on the side of not knowing what it's like to be a man. And if you didn't know something and you wanted to get the best information to your child, to your son, how would you go about it? If you didn't know Spanish and your son wanted to learn Spanish, you would look for Spanish courses, books. That you wouldn't sit up there and be, hey, I know enough Spanish. I habla español. All we gotta do is this. No, you would respect the fact you didn't know. So I think the same way with like being a young man.
The community of positive men, the community of men that exemplify, that hold you accountable. A man will we can hold each other accountable. You know what I'm saying? Or we can challenge a man, so to speak. Um, and being held accountable, holding accountable and being held accountable, meaning that you can also take the critique. You know, there's a level of refinement you have to go through in that process that men understand the best. And so I think that that's going to be for a young kid in that situation. And we got to be real too. That should be happening. Everybody's not going to get married. Everybody, I can give you what I think is the best solution to an ongoing issue. But if we find ourselves in these certain situations, we really do know we need to know how to respond in them. So that really is a good question, Miss Janice. I think also yeah,
Wonderful jobs. But I think, to me, if I say what do I think a young man, like especially a young man that don't have a father in the household, I think the quickest skill sets I would be trying to get instilled in him is accountability and reliability, and understanding, like, respect for authority. So I'll be looking, okay, martial arts, that's just the thing, martial arts, boxing, and I would be looking for sports where he could really have an ongoing relationship. See, boxing is not no boxing season, right? So you get him in a gym there or something, he can grow up there. I would want my son growing up in the presence of other men. If I was in like a single woman, because you want to have masculine eyes and ears on your son, and then you want to have your son around wise counsel. You don't want to have your son around, just okay, maybe every now and then, you do have like a great someone marries and becomes a great step parent, but that person, he has a little bit of an ulterior motive coming in the door. He likes you. The son is just an added. It's a requirement. In order to get with you, I gotta be nice to this kid. But I would
right.
like, so I would look for like people in the community that have like a burning, they have a natural, inclination, and then put him around good kids. When you see the kids that's on his, he's friends with, guy on the baseball team, and it's a smart kid, come from a good family. I think you have to be a little more intentional, um, when it comes to like picking the people in your child's life if you don't have a father in the house. I think it's a lot more of an intent behind it as a woman than if guys were growing up in a balanced, 2-parent home.
Overall well-being of you, and no disrespect, and they're doing that for him because they overall care. You can't bring a lot of men in a child's life who like he said that you're just kind of the reason. The kid is he's here. You never know how that you just have to use discernment, because I get it. People are lonely, that you get lonely, you want somebody, but you definitely got to use discernment. Yes, accountability, reliability, respect for authority. That's the pillars. You got to have that, man. Because how? Okay,
7 years old, 8 years old, treat him like a young man worthy of respect and expected to give people respect. When I say treat him like a young man worthy of respect, hey, he might be your son, but if he lives in a house, that's his house. If you're dating somebody, something like that, they should never meet inside that house. Treat him with something like treat your son like you have the highest level of respect for him. You know, in your transparency. Now, don't be inappropriately transparent, but in your what's going on. Hey, this guy like I want to, I want to meet y'all to meet out, you to be comfortable. Make concessions for the man in him. Like don't I think a lot of sometimes what I've seen, and even I have to tell my mother just, don't parent to the boy, parent to the man. That's about the best I can give you.
Responding to a masculine energy in a positive way. A man has to see that too, because it gives us cues on, okay, well, that works, that's a good way to treat a woman. you know a lot of times we hear a lot about the negative and what not to do, and sometimes end up doing it anyway because we don't know the alternative. We hear so much about the negative, but you have to see that, just like men. It's good for children to see how a man comes around and treats you and not trying to just smash you, like wants to make sure you gently get to where you need to go. Because at the end of the day, it's like this. Let's get into this because I think when we talk about these situations, what's going on, Red Lipstick? Glad you didn't popped up, fell through. Um, I gotta check out your show too. I see that you be dropping some information, so I'm definitely I'm finna tune in to you, Red, for sure. Um, but where was I, man? Bring me back. I didn't got
Get at them.
Cardi B. Um, even the DDG situation. Um, we have guys that are um we have guys that have chosen situations for themselves more than likely based off of how it makes them feel. Some type of aesthetic, some type of sexual appeal versus, you know, how a woman responds, how a woman acts, and that's going to be a reflection of you. That's really going to be like, hear me out. Hear me out. If you are living a life that leads you into chaos, if you are living a life that exposes you to chaos, if you're living a life that doesn't have a clear cut direction to get any better, it doesn't matter what we think about it. It doesn't matter whether we think it's right or wrong. You're going to be attracting that in your space because you're going to be going after that all the time. If you are living in a chaotic world, you're going to go after May who represents that. They're mirrors. So if you are at a space in your life where you have an understanding of okay, this is how I want to operate, this is how I want to move, then I'm going to have this type of mate. And that's typically going to be accompanied by some attributes of a woman that is representative of a wife. A lot of the times, what we're doing as men, we're not looking at the character. We're putting how they look over their character. We're putting over how they make us feel over what they're really showing us. And let me say this too. Yes, I want to know as much about you as I possibly can. I want to ask you questions. Not only do I want to ask you questions, I want to meet your family. I want to see what people think about you. I want to spend time with you. And yes, I want to know about your past. See, this whole mental Jedi mind trick of my past doesn't matter because you don't you don't want to ask about my past because you want me asking about your past. Your past does matter to a degree because I need to know what the behavioral pattern of you, what is that? Have you grown from that? But I'm only gonna know that if I've done that for myself.
Yeah, I don't know. The only thing I say is I can't say DDG really is a digital marketing prodigy. Like I don't know that I can't say that he met his woman in lust. There's a lot of things that started out in great spirit that wound up. I've had relationships that at one point all, I mean, we live to assist each other, you know what I'm saying? And live to, it was in righteousness. And that by the end of the point, we were worst enemies. So I can't say that, I don't know what brought two people together. But overall, I get the general stance of what you're saying. I just can't apply it to someone I don't know without, what I'm saying, further information. Grace, I don't even know who Halle Bailey is. So I don't shit, for all I
I,
know, they could have met,
I don't think a man. I don't think a man that is leading with his, I'll say, having his heart in the right place. I don't think he wants his woman being such a revealing person. Like when I think of like a Pauletta Washington, Denzel Washington wife, you see a woman that is, respectable. You see a woman that he respects highly, and I don't really see her in these. Of course, they're both entertainers. Even a man wanting an entertainer, I think that has an element of lust to it. I think that has a level of illusion to it versus somebody who's just a very good supporting cast to you, somebody who allows you to be in that space. I think is power in that. I think when you're looking to share with somebody or you're looking for this superficial person, you're gonna get a backlash that's in the public like that, like this Cardi B thing. This is somebody who raps and sings about perversion, and you expect for this person to exemplify wife in her private life. Even if you're fake, the shit that you're presenting to the public, it's going to seep into your real life because you're gonna want to mimic that. We
yeah.
act like that doesn't matter. Look at the gangster raps. Them niggas wasn't gangsters at first, and then they rapped about it and they slung their way into actually having these things come to the doorstep. So we
Yeah,
can
I
speak
feel you
things.
on the Cardi B thing.
Yeah,
I just think like that what you describing is best, definitely best practice. But there's no indicator of. I mean, if that's the case, Felicia Rashad has been divorced. Felicia Rashad's on her third marriage. I mean, that's the Claire Huxtable. So I'm not saying that stuff isn't obviously. Now, for my research, the only thing I found that actually lowers your chance of divorce and increased chance of success is premarital counseling and praying together. That's the only two things that I've ever researched that said that, hey, people who do this statistically, divorce at a lower rate. Everything else is kind of, yeah,
will work if they are definitely committed to God. The marriage institution of God. I'm just being real. I know people be wanting all these kind of weird viral type answers, but that's really the truth. So you're right when it comes to praying together. I think everything else is just, how we're responding from the flesh standpoint. I think it's a nuanced conversation. It's not always lust. Sometimes you're dealing with a woman that I think women like that are being broken up with that seem aggressive or combative. I think there is a way to deal with them, but they're going to take a lot more patience. I think that with a
yep,
lot of women, you have to have patience, but the only way you get that is just learning how to control your emotions. You can't validate her emotions by you overreacting to things she's telling you because of how the energy that they bring. So
yeah, being an easily bothered man.
yeah, you can't
Mhm.
do that also. It may take a lot of patience. It's very new. It's a nuanced thing. It's not a one side. We have there are several types of conversations we can have when we start talking about relationships. What type of person is in that relationship? But the person that matters the most in every situation, whether you're somebody who is considered weak or you're somebody that's strong, if you're a man, you are responsible.
Yeah, no, I feel you on
You're
that.
you're totally responsible. She may cheat on you. It's not the end of the world. There are other women out there. She may leave. Like you said, you could do everything. She may leave. She may trip. She may be nagging all the time, but she's doing other things you need. She's gonna question you. She's gonna be pushing you. She's gonna be asking you questions. Um, I don't think that black women. I'm gonna say this too, especially while we got some black women in here. I do not think that black women are difficult at all. I don't think that black women are the most difficult. In fact, I think black women are the most submissive. Black women demand a man, especially when they've been in situations where they may have seen a woman have it. They got to see you, you know, fulfill needs and have boundaries at the same time. Many of our women haven't seen that. So black women really aren't aggressive. Let me tell you something. You get to doing all of that, da, 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 and I can't get you to stop. I can't communicate to you. I don't want to invest that much into you if that's going to be a problem up front. Maybe you don't work out for me. I'll friend zone you. Men got to learn how to friend zone. I think he gonna come right back. I don't know what happened. He got the link. He gonna come back. I'm gonna see what happened. But um, let me see. You know, you have to recognize red flags up front. You got to be able to recognize red flags up front, but you have to be operating in a certain space that commands that. You have to have things around you that you care about. You have to have, okay, I have a level of responsibility that I have to be mindful of. I don't need anything coming in here and ruining that. And that's somebody that you have to be cool with in their heart. You have to like who they are. It's not about looks. It's really not about looks. I don't care how, why do we think we have these old sayings when we talk about beauty is only skin deep? Beauty is only skin deep. You focused on temperamental. It's just like women. When it comes to money, it's temperamental. But the man is a ongoing project. It's a progressive thing. If he's a real man, he'll rise to the occasion. You may have to love a man through a process, and that's what a lot of women can't do. However, we have to understand if she can't. If she cannot make the mission, you can't give up. You cannot give up. You can't be quitting because she don't want to be there. You have to continue. You're going to take losses, and you're going to, I'm sorry about that. You're going to take losses. You're going to be in challenging positions. You have to emotionally be stable for that. All the while she's complaining, all the while the children are, um getting loud, they're complaining, everything seems like it's going south. You have to have some stability in your emotions. So when she's being pushy, all right, we got him back. All right, bet. I was gonna say, I was like, I knew you could come back. You good?
Yeah, man. Nah, man. That was my damn phone battery died, man. Like, but
All right. Wait, hold on. She said, can you elaborate on what is meant by loving a man through a process? Okay. Miss Janice, you're gonna have to stick with me. You know this the cooking show. So you're gonna have to stick with me. I know it's gonna be long. The thing about this, and I'm setting this disclaimer, a lot of this information, when you in a relationship with y'all man, y'all probably can't even sit long enough to listen to them talk. Because women want you to get right to the point. They want you to get it, they want you to get it done. They don't like to be lectured to. So often they'll go out to other setting it up. Um, I'm gonna use myself as an example. Um, you know, I was in a marriage where I was, I've said this many times on my show. I think I said it on live. Who was really a good wife. A woman who was a good wife and did all the things she should have been doing, but I was misguiding her because I wasn't focused. I was my desire. So I saw how terrible that was, and I made a character decision that I was going to change and be a different type of man, even if I couldn't get her back for myself, for my children, and moving forward. So a lot of men may not get to this point until I'm 40. Once you get into your 30s, you should be growing up. A lot of men aren't growing up until they get into their 30s. By the time you get to your 40s, is really where you're experiencing a certain level of being an adult because you've learned from experience. You're making better choices. You didn't went through the fire. So it takes time for a man. You have to be refined. And the only way that you can be refined is The process and the painful to yourself and others. You have to take what come with that. Only the strong can survive. Only a woman can sit back and say, I'm gonna allow this to happen. I believe that he can do this. That's why God matters, because you have to have faith in something. You have to be serving a greater purpose. Is it better for me to have a stepfather in here raising these kids that don't, that and not being able to get along with, my children's father? Should I just stay? You have to really be prayerful. Listen, I'm not telling anybody to stay and get beat up, because we always go to the extremes. I'm not telling anybody to stay in something that's just terribly abusive. But if you have a man, for the most part, that is righteous, that's young, and you've been with him, and you've seen him go through, you need to test him. Though you need to require that he mans up. See, that's the other part to this. You still, as a woman, you can understand his process, but you cannot coddle him. You cannot coddle him. You can't take care of him and baby him, and you not his mama. Yes, nigga, I want to this paid. I need this paid. And you might leave because it's not being fulfilled. That may happen. Some of y'all can't weather that storm. You're not bad for that, but he's got to man up and make that situation better. But he should not be doing that because of you. He should be doing that because that's his standard. He has responsibilities. He has to make sure things are okay. He may have to work some overtime. He may have to do some shit. He may have to battle with kids thinking he's trash because he's always working. There's so much a man must be able to handle, and you can't make it easier for him. He has to figure it out. He has to understand that he has to get something set up and make it go. So everything we just talked about up to this point was leading us up to this even bigger point. We now have somebody that is in a situation of responsibility with you. You may have had to watch him go through this process, or you may be on the other and stay, or you may be on the other side and you left. Either way, he has to be accountable. He's responsible for that to some degree. But you, on the flip side, must be accountable for your decision. If it's decisive, if you leaving something that in the long run was better for you, don't be bitter. Don't pass on bitterness to the kids, because that's just not a good thing to do. And men, you can't be mad because it didn't work out and now you bad mouthing her to the kids. Somebody got to be the bigger adult. God be doing it for us. We want all that grace from God and don't has to have comes with that. You can't be fighting on her and hitting on her and tripping. Cause like he said, it ain't that you just depressed. You broke. You ain't even trying to work towards nothing. And listen, you may have to ask for help. A man knows how to control pride, because sometimes you can't be too proud. You got to know how to say, you know what? I need help right now, but I got to be able to use what I'm getting to get me somewhere else. Men have an extensive job. Women are comparing the men that they've dealt with, or the men that they've seen in our community who often don't reflect that. They're comparing all of us to that. Not all of us operate like that, but we can identify with a time where we might have been considered the fuck guy, the fuck nigga, whatever. We understand that, and we need to humanize. See, I'm here to humanize that for men. Women don't like when I talk about certain aspects of that. I understand that it hurts you. My experience teaches me that it hurts you, and it's not a good thing for us to be doing in relationships, committed relationships, and marriages. But at the same time, I do understand what might make a nigga get out in the streets and cheat. I totally understand. I can get where a man might be coming from when he has somewhere he feels like he's doing everything, but he's not getting the type of, love or affection at home. I understand that. I do. But on the flip of that, a man has to understand that. Why is that dictating how you operate? No, having grace isn't the same as abandoning boundaries. You don't have to abandon boundaries, but you can, hey, look, I don't like this, Because once the decision is definitive, the decision is definitive. Hey, look, I didn't told you for quite some time, and this hasn't changed. So, you know, a man, okay, I talk a lot about togetherness and sticking through it, but you also can't be afraid to cut something off. You can't be afraid. You can't be so in love. Remember, we were talking about Adam and Eve. Remember, I said he put that bond over the boundary. Remember that, Miss Janice? You was in here when I said that. You can't put that bond over a bound. You can't allow chaos. And so your departure does a lot more than your hands would ever be able to do. Your separation from you, especially if you're providing the presence, it will do way more than your hands will ever be able to do because you have a standard. Now she's in question of why didn't I make the cut? Well, you got to figure that out. Are you too feisty? Are you too prideful? Are you sometimes mean? Because our women have a tendency of thinking that they're infallible. They just have this tendency to think that they don't be doing nothing wrong. But you do something wrong. He needs to hold you accountable. And maybe his departure is the piece of that. Because you just couldn't, because it's like, wow, damn, he was with you and it didn't work out. He went over here and did something else and totally went up. You're a multiplier. You should have been multiplying for him, not, you know, listen, through the process and your testing, you have to be tender. If you want his leadership to be tender, then your testing has to be tender. You questioning him isn't being aggressive, and it's how you ask the question. You have to show that, hey, even though you're going through this tough time, even though this is going on with you, I'm gonna respect you. I'm not gonna dish you. I'm not gonna make you feel less than a man. But that man must understand that during the process of whatever he may be going through, he gotta be trying. You gotta be getting it going. And you have to respect, you have to see that. You can't, this is not your opportunity to kick him when he's down and say he ain't shit and he ain't no good and all of that. Those are the words you're putting into him when you are the multiplier. See, we don't talk about this part. Whatever I put into you is what I get out. So if it's negativity, you may be doing that. But if you're a wise woman, you got to understand too. You may have to use the same emotional intelligence you are asking him to use. And it can be difficult. It can be difficult because you're stressed. You got pressure on you. You don't want to be in these situations where am I going somewhere? Am I going so I like to ask y'all because when y'all be like, yes, Keith, you know what I'm saying? That's how I know. On uninterrupted, I just be letting it loose. But she has to see you getting through whatever you're getting through, but as you can't be on the flip. You can't just demean this guy. You can't kick him while he's down. You can't habitually step over these boundaries that he's setting for you. You have to show him some respect. And we're trying to rob that of society and say, oh, don't do that. See, our women were sold a level of independence that a certain type of man doesn't even wanna. He gonna get away from that really fast. If you just over talking, if always combative, a man that sees good in you will put up with that. A man that sees good in you and sees, like you for you, and it's just not about sex, he can deal with it, but for only so long. So you have, it's a flip side to everything. We just tend to forget this. But a man has to be mature enough to say, hey, that's too much. That's a little too much. You know what I'm saying? The ribs protect the heart. Hey, Miss Janice, I don't know if you saw that other quote I put up on the community that you said about judgment without context leaves no room for grace. I think I put that up. Man, hey, Miss Janice, because and I gave you credit too. I put the credit down there. But that's what I mean by the process. Masculinity is, I've broken it down into four levels, and I'm sure that this correlates with some type of this is just something that I've been working on. Correlation. Masculinity is in four stages. You got boyhood, adolescent, responsible, and then you have this covenant masculine man that I coined that as somebody who's covering the family, has that understanding. That's a smaller group of men than just even a responsible man. Sometimes a man's responsible, he's covering things, but he may not be at that position where he's talking like I'm talking, as far as you have to have a certain level of understanding to make that marriage work or that relationship work, or accountability of itself. It doesn't mean that he's any less than. And it comes in stages and ages. You gotta go through it to get to it. A lot of guys are have a stunted growth. They're inside of they are at their boy stage, adolescent stage. Responsibility uh may they may have a cap on that, a small cap on that. Anything that you say may bother them, or they don't take the test well. I mean, that's just understandable. That's what it is. But I'm not saying stay just for no abuse. I ain't saying just stay in some abusive situation and you take something extreme. No, I'm not saying that. Um and sometimes, hey, you know, why did you get there in the first place? Why did you get with this person in the first place? What was the thing that brought you there? What was the thing that made y'all get together? Okay, so let's talk about that. You gotta, but I'm gonna say God every time. Prayer. If you're not aligned in some moral compass, some direction for righteousness, you're gonna invite so many things in your relationship, and it's a man's responsibility to get the family on that type of time. This real life experiences. I do understand that it may be a multitude of people coming here. I'm not trying to be an evangelical preacher up here. I'm just telling you through my own life experiences and what I've seen works and what I think you take from if the experiences. And I think it checks out when people come in because they've had probably some similar experiences, or you see where, okay, I fell off there and I understand why. And that's what you're doing as a man. Okay, I understand why that didn't work. I need to be better. And there's a level of pain you have to live through. I mean, you got to deal with the pain until you dealing with it. It may come and go. You have to get to a place to where you want to get through things. It's easy to think about the past and be getting all, what I'm saying, on some mini Riperton, what I'm saying, back down memory lane. It's easy to do that. And you just kind of thinking about, um, what it used to be, but you got to progress on past that. You got to progress on past that. At the end of the day, you have to get to a place to where you know your life isn't just it's not shattered because of someone. And I think because women do feel so in an intense manner, I think they have found a way to where they can kind of do these things, seemingly. They about things ahead of time. It takes a lot. They feel that too. They feel that too. Women are just. I think what we have to do is not just identify masculinity better, but we have to identify femininity better too, and know that it needs care and it needs a level of understanding, but it has to have a level of correction too. You can't just be doing whatever you want and it's out of your protection. But I think we have to learn how to be protective of how women feel, but that doesn't mean everything I'm gonna tell you is gonna feel good. Because sometimes the things that's there for your protection, they don't make you feel good. And we understand that as men. We understand that as men. Um, there's a lot of content out about the bad stuff. Oh, the woman did me bad. Oh, this is how women act and respond. And at times, I think that may come off like that here when I'm just describing the real, interaction with a woman. Um, thank you. Yeah, you got to have mindfulness. If you're gonna love correctly, you got to have mindfulness. But I'm also getting men to understand, hey, I've been there, I understand it, I know what it takes to get through that. This is what a man needs to do to get through these type of times. And this is the type of man you need to be aspiring to be. You need to be aspiring to be this type of man. It's okay to have bumps in the road. It's okay to feel a certain type of way. It's okay to have these moments where you're just you know, you feel a certain way, but you have to learn how to get through it. It's for your benefit. It's for your benefit and theirs. Um, Again, no, I don't know if every guy, look, every woman, it ain't a lustful thing. Some women you really thought they were really great, and you just, but a lot of men are, and at first, and I want to say this too, a lot of men initially are more passive. They don't have a lot of boundaries because they don't want to scare you away. They want you to be comfortable. They want you to feel a certain way. So younger men are typically not going to have a lot of boundaries. And if he's with a woman at that certain age, she's going to push boundaries, and he may not understand that. He may not understand that one bit. Um, what's really happening there? She could potentially leave or toughen him up to where he, starts to respond in a certain manner. But he learns through his responses and how he interacts. Oh, now, hitting her, that's something he should have already learned that he shouldn't be doing. Someone should have told him early on, if if that's even coming up, you need to get away from this person. Somebody should have told him that. But everything else, as far as these other tests of having boundaries, or no, I'm not going to get pushed around, he kind of learns that he has to go through that. So he may get with somebody who's a great girl and whatever, it's cool. Or he may get with somebody he just like and they're not really a great person. And he learns how to not take no shit. Cause you can't let her just boss you around. You can't let her do, if she sees that level of weakness in you, she gonna disrespect you. And then when somebody comes around who actually has boundaries on her, that's actually, that she commands that, you know, um, surrender from her, yeah, she might leave you, but there are men that understand this early on and they progress through that. That's just a part of the process. It's not gonna always be this fairy tale thing. You can't be, listen, they all that checking up on her. She either wants you or she don't. She either wants you or she don't. She either want to be with you or she don't want to be with you. You got to be the type of man that she want to be with. But that's based off you. I wouldn't. It ain't about what she want. It's who I am. You mess with me because of who I am. And if she don't like that, then she don't like that. She moving around, and it's gonna work for you. That's gonna be in your best interest. Now I'm gonna talk about flip side of the game. A lot of times, what happens when you're cool and you're that type of guy and you're getting women who like you fuck them over. You're not being real with him. You're not telling them the truth. You're cheating on them. We do that too. Like look, it's all parts of the game. You're not respecting the type of person that you really have. You're not respecting a woman who is, you're looking for this oogly googly feeling inside and butterflies. You're looking for all this romance. A lot of men, to truth be told, a lot of men like that. A lot of men love romance and all that, right there. And you don't realize you have somebody who's just beneficial to you, somebody who's checking on you, somebody who's making sure you do stuff. You have to respect that as an asset. And in return, love her with action, take care of her, make sure she's good. That's a good woman. There are women like that. That men just totally, I mean, I like her because she, you're putting your stability in her. So her being stable makes you stable. That's in bad operation. That ain't even right. That ain't even in order. And it's gonna come out too with how she responds to you. Because if she see you as somebody who is leaning on her, she's gonna treat you like that. She's gonna make you man up a bit. But anyways, we'll get with women like that, whether it be a full-time relationship or not, whether we just making them, some of them be side pieces, and that's bad. That's why I be saying, when I talk about casual sex, it's a dangerous thing to be having casual sex with good women. Women who you just know, like, she's not fucked up. She's not a bad person. She is not a bad person. I should not be doing her like this. We do that. We got to be honest with ourselves. As much as we talk about, You got to think about it like this. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to laugh because this is funny. I'm just life is funny. Okay, I'm not trying to. But if you are the type of man that has had a woman's attention and you broke her heart, or she had a lot of interest in you, that totally could be that could fuck her up. That could make any other relationship seem weird to her, or she may not want to get into it because it's not what she likes or whatever impact you made on her. We got to start taking this stuff into account. It's not really all their fault. It don't really be their fault. They Now the only thing that really falls on them, sometimes, a lot of times, you can't dictate how somebody was raised. If you have somebody that was not raised in a household that they were conservative with certain ideals, and you have somebody more liberal, then that's just what it may be. So you can't always account for character and like flaws. That's not the flaw of the person is not on you. They just have flaws. You have to determine what are they have to want to develop those flaws, but you don't determine exactly, all that character. So some shit people just be doing. Some people are just bad people. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or woman. Some people are just like, if it's somebody that just like verbal, like abusive and just yelling, just always being mean, that's a hard thing. That ain't got nothing to do with you. So certain things are just, you know, definitely on that person as a child. But then as you become an adult, you have to be operating in a much more mature way. And a lot of times women have to they got to go through some stuff. They do because, they'll learn like, okay, well, I was brought up in a liberal manner. And so I just went with a guy like this. Or there wasn't anybody monitoring us at home. So maybe I had premarital sex very early. But at some point, you have to learn, even if no one's around. And that's the tough part. That sucks. There's no good part of that. I can't even, all I can say is for men have to be better moving forward with, I'm not putting babies in women I don't plan on taking care of. And unfortunately, she may end up being a thought. But if the kid is mine, I'm gonna make sure the kid good in any kind of way I can. I have to have some level of relationship with this lady, even if I'm not with her. And that's the situation that you may have put yourself in. You gotta take that, dog. You can't just be the dude who barking and I got it. No, you gotta take what come with it. But see, a lot of my language is I know what comes with it. So this is how I'm gonna be moving. This is gonna be my standard. This is how I'm gonna operate. This is how I'm gonna operate with my life. This is how, if anybody comes in my life to be my, what I'm saying, woman, this is how things are set up. Hey man, this was a good one. We cooked up. This was really a spur of the moment thing. I wanted to get Rob on here. I wanted to have something that we could put up and just have one of our just natural conversations. When we cook up, man, we be having a whole bunch of conversations that are really, 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 really dope. So when we doing it like this, I get to go. This ain't like just making a clip or shooting a video. When you shoot the videos, now I get to get on here and we get to talk. So I love this, man. Appreciate you, Miss Janice, and keep me right. I know sometimes I go off on a tangent and I just be it be so much of you want to get off, and I just sometimes you gotta reel me back. But as always, I appreciate y'all, man. Tomorrow, at probably the same time we're gonna do the stream yard. So I usually have a panel up here. Those things hadn't been getting a lot of love because nobody knows, man. I gotta tell y'all to set the notifications. I've done a terrible job of telling y'all how to tune in and just being consistent with those things of the times. But I'm gonna use the community more so y'all can tap in, see when stuff's going on because I mean, hey, we're gonna be consistent around here. We got a lot to talk about and a lot to do. But I'm out. Love y'all.